What is up? You were watching another episode of the LaxFactor Podcast. This is another conference tournament edition, and we're going to rip through all the conference tournament games that were on last night. We'll start with Hopkins, Maryland, because that one was very interesting and very eye-opening. But before I get to all of that, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. One of the biggest things you can do to help us grow, share this video with your friends, with your homies. And as always, you can also go to LaxFactor.com and pick yourself up some t-shirts. We have both our LaxFactor t-shirts and just a bunch of other cool lacrosse-related t-shirts. We have cool shorts like these Rampage lacrosse shorts, and we can also, if you comment in this video, make it be thoughtful, make it be about the games that were on last night, we'll enter your name in to win this Channel 4 News lacrosse shirt, reversible. It's actually got burgundy, number 10 on the back of it. This is from tribelacrosse.com. They have all sorts of reversibles and shorts and t-shirts and things that you can actually personalize at tribelacrosse.com. Check them out. As always, also, get yourself a lacrosse helmet lamp. Go over to laxfactor.com/lamp to learn more about the helmet lamps. I digress. Let's get into this. The LaxFactor Podcast. First game I wanted to talk about is obviously Maryland Hopkins. Hopkins went down early in their regular season finale against Maryland. Hopkins comes out, they go down like 5-1, they come back and they beat Maryland by a handful of goals. This game was almost a carbon copy of that game. Maryland came out firing, they came out hot, they jumped out to a 6-2 lead at one point, prior to letting Hopkins get back in it at about, Hopkins tied it at 4:25 left on a Forey Smith goal, and then they take the lead with 1:39 left in the third off a Joey Epstein goal, and then it went back and forth. Maryland tied it up again, and then Hopkins rolled from there. What this says about Maryland is what we already knew. Early in the season, if you had watched, I had talked a lot about Maryland's inconsistency on defense. They have a hard time off ball. They have a hard time with slide packages at times. I thought they had shored that up because they have looked pretty solid through the entire middle part of this season. And these last two games against Hopkins, they've been exposed. I think the key here was they were playing against a quality opponent, but they were playing against a quality opponent who was desperate. In the scenarios in which teams were chipping back and getting back into games early when Maryland was barely squeaking out wins early in the season, it was a similar thing. They would get leads, and then they would slowly but surely kind of lose track on defense and let these teams get back in it, and that's what we're seeing now. But I think it's the aggressiveness. I think it's Hopkins' aggressiveness on offense, not waiting for Maryland to get back always into their 6-on-6 sets. There was a great goal after a Maryland turnover. Cole Williams got the ball before he goes behind X, and before things got settled, he came up hard on the left, dodged, and then redodged and cut hard into the middle of the field. They're just not ready, and they're not organizing their slide package quick enough. It almost seems like if you play a team who doesn't try to push the pace, Maryland is going to be okay. Maryland, you put them on the field with a team that's pushing pace, especially kind of these do-or-die dodges like we're seeing out of Hopkins a little more, they're going to have problems. In all, Bernhardt 3-1, Dubik 1-2, Wisnauskas 1-1. These guys have been a little bit quieted. Bernhardt's doing everything he can, but some of the other guys that have been carrying a lot of the weight for Maryland have fallen off a little bit. Cole Williams, huge for Hopkins. He's been huge through the final stretch of their season. He's 3-2. Epstein's been solid all year, 3-2. Concannon 2-1. Smith 2-0. Marr just a goal. He was quiet. Goalkeeping, Danny Dolan for Maryland was not the problem. He goes 15 saves, 10 goals against. He was seeing the ball well early and not so much the second half. He had a bunch of those 15 saves early and then kind of pestered him in after. And Darby, Darby's tough for Hopkins. If Darby can save the ball at just a near 50% clip like he did last night, 8 saves, 7 goals against, then Hopkins should be okay as long as they continue to shore things up on defense. So Hopkins looking much better. They move on to the Big Ten Finals to face the winner of the other semifinal game, Penn State and Rutgers, and Penn State rolled this one. I thought we may see another scenario in which, hey, maybe we'll get another good game. The first semifinal went down the way the regular season game had, and this rematch did not pan out the same way for Rutgers. Rutgers struggled from the very beginning, never got it together. Penn State rolled them badly, 18-6. Grant Ament, 4-3. TJ Malone, who has been key in Penn State, starting to get back. Penn State had beaten people up early, then they had kind of settled, and they were playing slightly closer games here through the end of the season as they started playing their tougher opponents, but Now, even with the tougher opponents, they're rolling again. So, and tougher opponents, Rutgers is 7-8 after this loss. So it's not like Rutgers was a good lacrosse team. They should get beat by Penn State, I think, by a margin like this. O'Keefe 3-1, Kelly 2-1, Kelly, Malone, Spillane. These guys are key to Penn State beating teams by 7 or 8 as opposed to just Penn State eking out wins. Arceri didn't play, so it didn't matter though. Penn State still rolled. I might be wrong about that. I'm thinking someone else's faceoff man didn't play. I think Arceri may have. Knies, solid in cage, 11 saves, so not much to talk about here. Penn State was awesome. Gallagher, 3-1 for Rutgers. Penn State's going to face Hopkins. So Hopkins, you can make the argument early on, we would have thought Hopkins needs to win this game to get in to the tournament, and I think they still do. But Hopkins has an at-large argument now at 8-7 if they lose the finals here to Penn State, which I think they probably will. They've got a brutal schedule, and to win 8 games with their schedule, 2 of those wins against Maryland. They may be able to get it at large, but I still think Hopkins, just to be safe, they need to win this game. But the Big Ten now, even if Penn State wins and Hopkins loses, the Big Ten may get 3 teams in Penn State, Maryland, and Hopkins, depending on how it goes. If Hopkins wins the finals, hands down, Big Ten, they get 3 teams in the tournament. We move on to the next one, Big East. The Big East semis, I thought they were going to be interesting. This one went down about how I thought it was going to. Denver and Villanova. Denver ruled this game from the beginning. They did let Villanova score the first goal of the game, and that was it after that. They took a huge lead and rolled, and Villanova chirped their way to 17-11 to make it look respectable, but it wasn't as respectable as this even looks. Ethan Walker, 3-1. French, 3-1. Colton Jackson, 3-0. So they're spreading it out, Denver is, and they're playing solid defense on the other side. Goalkeeping has been a problem for Denver. Cole French, 6 saves on 11 goals against, so that continues to be a problem. That's going to be Denver's biggest problem moving forward here. I think Denver gets into the tournament even if they lose in the Big East finals, but their goalkeeping is not going to help them get past that first round, or if they are lucky enough to get past the first round, certainly not good enough to get past the quarterfinals, I don't think. So Villanova, they're done. Denver, they get to move on to the Big East finals this weekend, and they're going to play the winner of the other semifinal game, Georgetown and Providence. Providence got into the tournament, but at 7-8, they weren't looking too hot. I honestly thought this one may go the way of Georgetown and Georgetown may roll them. It was the opposite. Providence actually controlled the game pretty well throughout. They had a 12-9 lead at the end of the third, leading into Georgetown scoring 4 unanswered over the course of the fourth and eking out that 13-12 win. Caraway, 3-0. Bucci, 2-0. Clark, 2-0. Watson, 2-0. So Georgetown spreads it out. The story of the day, though, was Lucas Wittenberg. His 1 goal and 8 assists led Georgetown. He had an incredible game. Looked like Grant Ament in terms of just standing in space and just nailing cutters and spot shooters all day long. Georgetown's problem is going to be like Denver's problem, goalkeeping play. Down the stretch, it's going to be a problem against Denver, goalkeeping play, but Denver has the same problem at least. But if whichever one of these teams gets into the NCAA tournament, I think that, I don't know, could the Big East get 2? I guess they could. Obviously, whichever one wins the tournament, wins the conference and gets in, their problem in that first round of NCAA play is going to be their goalkeeping and the inconsistency of their defense. But I think when you have a bad goalkeeper, you're always going to be a little bit inconsistent on the defensive side of the ball. So Georgetown faces Denver in the finals this weekend. Should be an excellent game, and that's a toss-up, man. I don't know who's going to win that game, but it's going to be interesting for sure. SoCon. Who would have thought at this stage we'd be excited about what the hell goes down in the SoCon tournament? I still am. I figured this game, High Point Jacksonville, was going to go the way that it did. I thought Jacksonville might be a little bit more nippy at the heels, but they weren't at all. High Point at one point took a 12-0 lead, I believe, en route to rolling 17-3. Hunter Vines had a big game for High Point. He goes 4-1. Asher Nolting 3-1, and then they spread it out completely from there. Troutner Jr. and Cage for High Point, 13 saves, 2 goals against. That is excellent. They move on to play in the SoCon finals against Richmond. Air Force Richmond. This was one of the best games of the day, even though it was slightly boring and very defensive in terms of the way the game played out. 7-6, Richmond gets the win. It went back and forth all game long. Teddy Hatfield 2-3, Ryan Lanchberry 2-1. I think it was Tate Gallagher is the one who scored the game-winning goal. He goes 2-0. Actually, here I can tell you if it was Tate Gallagher or not. Nope. Apparently, I don't have that in my notes, so I'm not even going to be able to tell you if it was Tate Gallagher. I think it was. You can bash me in the comments if I'm wrong. Russ Bolt, he played tough for Richmond in cage, 12 saves, 6 goals against. So Richmond is going to move on to face High Point. This is a rematch of their regular season battle that saw High Point. What did High Point win that by? High Point lost. Richmond lost to High Point 15-14 in the regular season. So this should promise to be a similar game in the finals here. It'll be interesting to see. One bid team, I think. I think if Richmond wins, High Point, I don't think has the resume to get an at-large bid. Their losses are going to be what hold them back, even though they have a couple of really good quality wins. But who knows? With teams losing, and there's been a lot of upsets in these conference tournaments, that may play into High Point's chances. We move on to the Colonial, and we had Towson playing Delaware. And this was a big game because these are two. Actually, Towson going into it, I think only had 9 wins, and Delaware had 10. Delaware had played solid lacrosse all year long, and I actually had a feeling that Towson was going to correct their issues. Towson was hot and was a ridiculously well thought of team early on in the season. They have a couple of bad losses, starting with that North Carolina shootout thing that they had down there where they dropped a bad game. So Towson 10-4, they rolled Delaware, which was good, and they did this because they shored up their defensive problems. Canto still played a little shaky in cage, but defensively they were solid, and their offense goes off. Monahan, 4 goals. McLean, 4 goals. Frommer, 4 goals, and my boy Brendan Sunday, he goes 3-5 on the day, 8 points for Sunday. So Towson advances in the Colonial, and they're going to now have to take on lucky for them, the 4 seed in that tournament, Drexel. Drexel upsets UMass. That one was a surprise, and it was a surprise partly because Drexel ruled that game from the beginning. I think at one point they were up 9-2, and this is a 10-win UMass, a team. UMass has played tough all year long. They played tough Yale tough right in the beginning of the season, and continued carrying that on right through 10 wins, and Drexel took it to them. Every time UMass would score a goal to get within 1 or 2, Drexel would put together their own 1 or 2 or 3 goal run to roll it. So Drexel wins this one 15-12, and they will go on to face Towson in the finals. I think Towson's going to handle their business, beat down Drexel, and then Towson, possibly the only team that comes out of the Colonial and gets themselves into the tournament. We move on to the Big East tournament. Vermont and Albany played a really good game. Albany had a lead late in the first half. I think they ended up taking a lead 7-6 or so, and Vermont rattled off 2 or 3 unanswered to take a 2-goal lead at one point and ran from there. Albany had a tough one. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out for Nanticoke. He struggled this season personally. He struggled on the field. He dealt with the benching. He dealt with playing midfield, coming off the bench playing midfield. So I'm wondering if he's going to have had enough of this and he doesn't come back and maybe he starts playing pro box. I hope that's not the case. I hope they right the ship in Albany. I'm a New Yorker, man. I've got to root for Albany when they're not playing Syracuse, and next year will be no different. Vermont, solid game. They're going to move on to face the winner of the other semifinal. And we have an upset here. And UMBC put it on Stony Brook. I actually thought Stony Brook was going to be the team to come out at the end of this tournament. And UMBC at 5-7 coming into the game, I think, put it on Stony Brook 14-8. So UMBC will go on to face Vermont. Brett McIntyre 4-0. Trevor Chork, sorry, man, butchered your name, 2-3, and they'll go on to face Vermont here in the finals. And their regular season contest panned out. They lost to Vermont by a goal. So legitimately, UMBC, they could win the America East tournament, and we could have a 6-8 team make the NCAA tournament, which would be pretty crazy. It would be a great story for UMBC. And if you recall, UMBC was the team that upset Albany early on when Connor Fields was out. So Retrievers, they're used to playing spoiler, so let's see how that goes, but that'll be, a weird game to see go down in the finals of the America East Conference. We move on to less exciting things. I wouldn't say this is less exciting. Hobart and Sacred Heart playing in the NEC. conference semis, and Hobart had a 14-7 lead at one point late in the third quarter, and then let Sacred Heart score 6 unanswered to get to within 14-13. I think Sacred Heart scored with under a minute left to get within that goal, and Hobart was able to hold them off. Eric Holden, 4-1 for Hobart. Derek Madonna, 2-2. In cage, Lucchesi, 9 saves, 13 goals against. So I always look at the saves because that's going to tell you what their chances are of eking out a win in their next contest. So in Hobart's case, in terms of their next contest, they move on to play Robert Morris. I couldn't believe it. Bobby Moe playing Mount St. Mary's in the tournament. And Robert Morris, at one point, the great thing about Robert Morris and why I'm excited to see them play Hobart in the NEC finals is because at one point, Robert Morris was 1-7. I believe it was 1-7. They rattled off 6 straight to end the season with a win over Hobart in their regular season finale to get them into their conference tournament. Now they beat Mount St. Mary's, who I believe was the 1 seed, 13-12 in overtime. So that's ridiculous. So Robert Morris is going to face Hobart in the finals. Have they used up all their luck? They have had a lot of good luck and a lot of balls bounce their way, leading to the end of their season and getting into the conference tournament and then getting this win nonetheless. So it's just going to be a weird, exciting final in the NEC just to see, can Bobby Moe continue their success? And if they can't, we have a good story in Hobart with Hobart getting a 10-win season and they're playing really solid offensive lacrosse. Hobart's Achilles heel is obviously this entire conference's Achilles heel is defense and just shaky goalkeeping. We move on to what I've been calling the least exciting league and conference tournament in the country. The MAC and Marist beat Canisius by a goal in their semifinal game. Joe Tierney goes 4-0, and Jamison Embury goes 3-2 for Marist. In cage, McGregor looked good for Marist. No, he didn't. 7 saves, 10 goals against. We had some terrible goalkeeping, apparently, last night. So Marist goes on to play in their conference finals, and they will face the winner of the Detroit Mercy Quinnipiac game, which Quinnipiac put it on Detroit Mercy by a score of 19-10. So that's it for all the conference games. The finals are all set up for Saturday from Thursday night's games. Now we have Friday night's games, and these are the best games of the week. Anyway, we have the Patriot League semis and we have the Ivy League semis coming up tonight. First, it's the Patriot League semis, Loyola versus Army at 5 o'clock tonight. That is followed up by Penn and Brown in the Ivy League semis, and then we will get another face-off in the Patriot League semis, Lehigh versus Boston, and then Yale versus Cornell. So Loyola Army should be a good game, but I'm pretty sure Loyola is going to handle their business. I think Loyola is going to play in their conference tournament similar to how we saw Towson struggle late, but then handle their business late in the conference tournament. I think you'll see Loyola do something similar, although Army's tough. The kicker with Loyola, they can lose and still get into the tournament. Army cannot. Penn and Brown, oh, man, it's a tough one. The Ivy League is shaking out weird all year long. Any team in the Ivy can beat any team in the Ivy on any day. So Penn and Brown will be a very interesting game. That faces off at 6 tonight. Lehigh, Boston University. I'm going with Boston U. Boston U's got snipers from downtown. Lehigh, though, has been an excellent story as well. Everybody that made the Patriot League tournament here, in terms of these top 4 teams that are playing in the semis, because 6 teams did get in, they're all very interesting teams. They're all very good teams, and all of them, no matter who wins this tournament, no matter who of these 4 teams in the Patriot League that are in the Patriot League semis get into the tournament, all of them can get a first-round win in the NCAA tournament. So these guys are just beating each other up. Same thing goes for the Ivy League. I think Brown's the odd man out there, but these top 3 teams in the Ivy, Yale, Cornell, and Penn, they likewise can beat anybody in the first round. And all 3 of those teams in the Ivy League semis, Penn, Yale, and Cornell, they could win first round games and second round games. They're all that good. So 4 excellent games to watch tonight. Be sure to tune in. Be sure to comment down below. Let us know what games you're interested in. Let us know what you thought about this weekend's games. Also, with your comment, if it's thoughtful enough, not even if it's thoughtful enough, if you just put half-ass effort in, we're going to count it. We'll get you entered to win this Channel 4 News reversible jersey from tribelacrosse.com. Go to LaxFactor.com. Get yourself a t-shirt. Get yourself a pair of shorts. We don't just have the LaxFactor podcast t-shirts. We have all sorts of different t-shirts that you can take a look at. And as always, go over to LaxFactor.com/lamp and get yourself a big league lacrosse helmet lamp. Turn your old lacrosse helmet into a dope accessory. And that is it. Thank you for watching. Make sure to share this show with your friends to help us grow. But again, I can't thank everybody enough for tuning in. Your eyeballs mean a lot to me. Enjoy.